Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very, very special guest, Tania!
Oh, hi Karen, how are we?
Good, thank you so much Tania for being here. I know you're not much of a public figure and a little skeptical of the podcast, but you're here!
Why not?
Exactly, I like the attitude.
Gotta be in it.
Yeah, gotta be in it to win it. But Tania, you've had quite an incredible life and done a lot of things and a lot of serendipity along the way. So I'm keen to explore, but we're going to start right at the beginning. So Tania, where were you born and what was your childhood like?
Okay, well, I'm a migrant into Australia, an immigrant. No, immigrant with an I, isn't it? That's correct. And I was actually born in Shanghai.
Oh, you're so cool!
So that was back in the days, but my parents are from Siberia or north above China into Russia. So when life changed over there, they migrated to Shanghai, and that's where I was born. So we lived in Shanghai in the French concession area, Shanghai, and we left in 48 when things became a little bit different there again. Politics changed, etc., etc. Not that anything was too hard or unpleasant, but I don't think we were particularly... Well, I think they wanted China for Chinese people, so we had to move on. So with that, we sort of became displaced, displaced people looking for somewhere to migrate to, and the Philippine people actually took us. So we went to the Philippines for about 10 months. So I remember having a birthday in Japan. I think I remember because I got 4 walnuts. That made me think I must have been 4 there. That was 1949. And from there, we stayed there for about 10 months and came here in October to Sydney, Australia in 1949.
Oh, so you were 5 or 6 or something when you came to Australia?
4 in January, and I was still 4 when we arrived here.
Okay, 4. Oh, that means you don't really have much of an early memory of being in Shanghai.
No, I don't. Just sometimes when I see... I know it was a cosmopolitan place, so there were people from all over the world there, and I remember some of the Indian people with their turbans on their head.
Yeah.
So every time I see one now, I think, I remember something like that from I feel I remember somebody there. But I have been to Shanghai 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
So it was good to explore the area and see where my mother went to church and where...
Yeah, but that's quite a cool fact about you, born in Shanghai. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, it's a cool place.
Yeah, it is. And then, so you came to Sydney, and then, what kind of childhood
we stopped in a camp, Greta, I think was the place, near Sydney, south of Sydney, and my father came up here looking for work.
Yeah.
And he came across this family who thought he was their lost son. So with that, we all came up and stopped. They boarded us for quite a while at the Wollongabba. So here we were in Brisbane.
Wow.
So we had work here, and my father bought some land here at Cooper's Plains, and we lived there for a long time.
Damn, so tell me more about the thought that your father was their lost son. So how did that go down? Was it a bit weird?
Well, we were young. I mean, staying in the Philippines, etc. There were hardships. There were different climate, different conditions. But I had a mum and a dad and a big sister. Yeah. What else do you want in life?
Yeah.
Hey? Yeah. So I can't really say anything was over difficult or strenuous or whatever. I was young and I had other children to play with. So what else do you want in life? And a family.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so what kind of child were you like at school, Tania?
At school, then I went to Dutton Park State School,
Nice.
which is not far from the prison, and we used to walk there. I was there just a short time, then we came out to Cooper's Plains. Cooper's Plains to me, I've still got photos and I can still remember some of the students, and some years ago we had a reunion at the school, and people have changed, but yet they haven't changed, so it's been... I don't feel I had a problem with the school. We had things like the forestry club. We had trees growing in the schoolyard. Lovely. So we had a forestry club and first start like a Red Cross, Red Cross type of club. So I remember sort of being president of those two clubs. So I think that makes me feel... And then we always used to compete for first place. My father used to like us to come top. So he wouldn't sign out... No, I don't know about strict, but if we didn't come top, he wouldn't sign the report card. So my mother had to do it then.
Yeah.
Oh, there was no whack or anything like that. It's just that he wanted us to do well. And I think we were pretty studious. But back in those days, it was only the radio and books. We used to go to the library on a Saturday up to South Brisbane Library and get the books out there to read. So it was all... Yeah. And then the TV came. The TV came when I was doing my sub-junior or 9th grade at the time. The TV came the night before my geography exam, and I got 51%.
Oh, tell your dad to sign off on that.
Oh, he wouldn't sign on that. We got a new TV set. What would you rather do? We used to, back in those days, in 1959, we'd go to the shops. So if you could see the TV set sitting in a shop, and you could sit outside the shop and watch the TV. But, well, that was only passing by. But then the neighbours would invite us over on a Friday night. We could watch theirs. But we got ours the night before geography test.
Damn, so does that mean your sister's grades were affected as well?
Oh, my sister was more into geography and history and art. So I don't know, and of course English was very good too because she was a good reader. So my sister, proud to say, back in those days they had this thing on radio called Top of the Class. It was a radio station for BC. Used to run this radio program, and students from all over Queensland or metropolitan area anyway would talk and be asked questions. Well, my sister, she may have been in the middle of her academic class, you know, as in top or bottom. Yeah. She was about the middle, which is fine, but this is high school, but on this top of the class, she got it right up to the semi-finals.
Wow, that's amazing.
So she beat other people who were very academic in her school. She beat them because she's good at geography and history and art, and they're the kinds of subjects that they ask you in questions on, you know, they don't ask you maths and those things that I was interested in. Yeah. So that was a tick for her. Yeah. And then she joined the theatre, Brisbane Arts Theatre, and occasionally I'd go in and be they need people to be Richard II's staff on the stage.
Get a bit of an acting career there,
No,
Tania?
not really, but she'd need extras, so we'd have to go there. But my sister she didn't act, she was the painter. She was the one that drew the sets.
Oh, wait, so she actually was part of drawing the actual set?
Well, the sets were like one play, they had a revolving stage, like it'll be nighttime or whatever, and the children be in bed, and you'd have a bed stuck on the wall sort of thing next to a wall. Yeah, and then they'd spin it round, and it'll be the daytime. It would be.
Oh,
and
that's
so
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. That was for her. That was her interest. Me, I think I probably played a little bit of sport. I'm a netballer, basketballer.
Very nice, very nice. Oh. Yeah, and what about in terms of personality-wise? If I were to meet you as a kid, would I see energetic, bubbly, or?
Well, I think sometimes it's a bit hard to ask that because it's what you think of yourself. It's what other people think. Well, actually, I have to say one of my favourite teachers was called Norma Croker. She was an Olympiad, and I remember being her little pet at school.
So proud, teacher's pet.
Yeah, it was. And then this is before high school. High school's a different kettle of fish, but this is primary school, and I used to meet her occasionally somewhere, you know, because she's quite a famous. Yeah. She got a gold medal in the relay back in the '56 Olympics, and I'd meet her, and it was all wonderful to catch up again. I was a little pet back in those days. Yeah. So I think I might have done all right.
Yeah, done very well.
It was fun.
Yeah, and what was it like fitting in with peers at the time? Was it quite easy to get along with people your age?
I don't believe there was much. I don't remember having any problems. Like we'd walk home with a group of students. Yeah. Sometimes we'd we'd have a little bit of problem with another country group, but that I think that happens anywhere.
Yeah.
But I don't remember being hurt or hit or kicked or nothing bad.
Yeah.
So we had good neighbours and we'd play with their children as well, and So
yeah, that's kind of cool, because I think teachers' pets, sometimes that can have like a bad connotation at like different schools. Some people, they might like pick on them because, you know, your teacher's favourite, maybe out of jealousy, but that's good that that part of your life was pretty smooth, Tanya.
I think it was pretty smooth. I am guilty of a very bad offence. One lunchtime, a group of us went for a walk where there was trees with mulberries growing on the bushes outside of the yard. We didn't go in the yard, didn't trespass, and the branches were out. And when we came back, we were late, and we got into trouble. And yes, we had mulberry stains on us. And actually, I'm very, very sad to say I actually got the cane.
Oh.
We had to put our hand out, and they gave us a whack.
Oh.
So I remember that. That was sort of like a big sin.
Yeah.
And to get the cane, that was unheard of. And I got the cane.
Oh, but everyone else in that group got the cane.
Oh, yes, we all got the cane too.
Yeah. Okay, that was more fair then.
And that was from, well, it wasn't quite silly. They were hanging over the fence. They were mulberries.
Yeah.
Beautiful, juicy, sweet black mulberries.
Nice. And what was it like telling your parents? Because, yeah.
I don't know whether they probably would have said you deserved it. Well, it was by afternoon, it's forgotten. It was just sort of a little whack on the hand.
Yeah, okay.
But that's like shame.
Yeah.
Didn't do things like that.
Like in front of the whole class. I mean, a bit embarrassing.
It was.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And so, what was
My sister probably wouldn't know about this.
Ooh! Okay, I'll make sure to flick the recording. By the way, how did you go in your geography exam? No, kidding.
Oh, well, that was the closest I've been to failing, so...
Yeah.
But then night school, when I went to night school later on, it was a different story. But, you know, you'd be reading the last chapter. Well, you'd get home at 10 o'clock at night, so you haven't really got much time to study. And you'd be reading your English, you had to do 18 pages a week or something, you know.
Yeah.
And you'd be reading the 17 and 18 on the train going into South Brisbane.
Yeah, cramming and not much
Cramming.
time. Yeah, and what about high school? So how was that transition, if you remember?
High school was fine. Again, no, I didn't have a problem there, but from being sort of in the top, fighting for the first or second position.
Not bad.
When you go to high school, it's like I was in an academic class, you know, doing Latin and whatnot. I wasn't quite in the top 5 there, but we had some brilliant people who have become doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, you know, so it was an academic class, and that was their forte. But I played netball at school, so we had fun. That was very good. High school was great, and I learnt Latin and French.
Oh, very cool. Did you still remember some as you grew older, or?
No, Masa Mart. That means I love you, love he, she, it loves. So yes, I remember those words. But being sort of from a migrant family, there were derivatives of English.
Yeah.
So Latin, sometimes you can analyse a word and you can select what it means through analysing the Latin or the French as well, you know.
Yeah.
So it probably helped.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, like, when you were so at that time, what were your kind of career aspirations, if you had anything?
Well, I did have a teacher scholarship at that time, but having dropped that, I thought I'd pick that up later after I left school.
Yeah.
But someone...
And so what exactly is a teacher scholarship?
Well, back in those days, you got one depending on your junior results, your grade 10 results.
Yeah.
And the government, the state I think it is, would pay you a few pounds in those days, or guineas, £2 or something, to continue high school.
Yeah.
And then you'd be indebted to them for the next 3 years. You'd have to work for them, like you couldn't leave. It was a scholarship. It was like a scholarship.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a sad. I didn't take that on at the time, but I was going to try and do it at night and work through the day, but that didn't happen. Yeah. But it's okay. There's other things in life. It just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, that's a good attitude. Yeah, and before you told me that, you know, at one point in time you wanted to be a ballerina, you wanted to do missionary work, so tell me more about that.
I don't know how that came in, but I was always my father was a musician, so we always had music.
Yeah.
And we had parties with people as well, and, you know, everybody danced and carried on, but I had a flair for we had a few very good dancing dancers in my class, and at school, primary school, we had a lot of the fates. These girls would lead the class, you know, with their dancing, and they'd have their hand gestures and their facial expressions, and they would just look fantastic. And I'd be sort of behind them because I'd mimic them, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they were beautiful. You know, they're lovely dancers. I always thought, well, I might be a dancer, but back in those days, money didn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
And ballet schools, they're all extra tuition, so
Yeah.
didn't happen for me either. But I do like dancing, so I don't mind getting up and dancing anywhere. But
Oh, yeah.
I'm no ballerina or ballroom dancer.
Yeah.
But the music's great. You can enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good. And what about wanting to do missionary work? Do you know where that came
Missionary
from?
work? No, I don't know where it came from. I don't know, but I know I've always said that I would have liked to have done that. And I'm probably possibly doing a little bit of volunteer work now, which is helping others that are probably need a bit of help.
Yeah.
And I can do the time, so I'm probably doing it now. So it's
Yeah.
it's lovely. It's a payback. It's giving me satisfaction, and
Yeah.
so here it is now.
Yeah, nice. And then, so you said that you didn't really take the teacher scholarship. So what kind of work and what kind of things did you do after?
Well, I had to take on a job, so it was a clerical job. In those days, Cotties and a few other factories around Rockley area, you know, living out this way, there wasn't a real lot of transport. They wouldn't take me. They thought I wouldn't stay, which is probably quite nice for me because they thought my education.
It's too high.
It was too high to sort of just take on sort of manual work, so that's a bit of a plus for me, I guess. Yeah. So I got a job at a local company, and it was just a very basic job, but you've got to start at the beginning. You're 16 or something, and you've got to start at the beginning and do an apprenticeship, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I learned a few things. I met a lot of people, and then someone tried to help me to get into a figures situation, working on figures. And they said I should join the public service and work for main roads where they've got engineering and etc. And eventually try to get into the engineering side, just like doing the figures side. So that's where I started.
Ooh, wow.
But I didn't start there. I stayed in a very basic job within the public service.
Yeah, and then so did you sort of slowly find your way towards more of the figures?
No, well, I stayed there for quite a few years, and then eventually, back in those days, if you got married, you had to leave the company, so you had to leave the public service unless you were brought into the public service through your schooling, like mainly typing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what happened, and then I went back to work eventually, and I started with doing figure work. Back in those days, there was Cheaper by the Dozen was a film where time and motion was in vogue, and I worked for a company at Rockley, working out time lost and how fast they worked, and work study.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. Just talking about it a few days ago, when we had to talk about work, I actually used a slide rule. I didn't use a calculator. I used a slide rule, four decimal points, and you work out how much was lost time, how much of the percentage of the day, what was the concentration of work? What would you call it? How much was the yield for the day?
Yeah.
So you did that, and I was the clerical side of it.
Very
people
cool.
stood there with stopwatches and measured how much time, how much was lost, what we lost in production, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was something different.
Did you enjoy your job?
I did enjoy that job, but eventually I thought, time for a change.
Oh.
So I suppose in a way I was quite lucky. Back in those days you were governed by the state award, the female and male, or clerical award. And I went for this job in payroll. And payroll finished up being the first female job that became on a male rate of pay.
Oh.
So I was pretty lucky. So suddenly I was escalated in dollars for my work.
Very
because
nice.
it was. I have to say that through the years, males still did get and still do get a higher rate of pay.
Yeah.
But it was nice to know that you're on a male, if I use the state award, I was on the male rate. So it was very good for me, but it made it that I couldn't leave doing that type of work because I'm getting a higher rate of pay. Why would you leave and drop 20% or something or other of your wages.
Yeah.
So I've been a paymaster most of my life, which has opened up other avenues for me as well.
Oh, cool. And tell me what it's like to be a paymaster. What does your day in the life look like?
Okay, back in those days, so I worked for Monia Tiles at the time. I meant travelling to Darra. And it was in those, I did have a little excitement. Back in those days, we did everything and put on paper. And then it was sent to a place in town where they looked at the paperwork. They made up the payroll for us, like the dollars. And one day, the traveller who picked up our satchels stopped at the shop to buy something, and the bags were robbed. That was quite an exciting day. Yeah. So I was called in. Oh, there's no money coming out because the paperwork's been stolen. There was nothing in it. It was just paperwork. So we had to sort of recall what we had done, and it was probably about 300 people, and you had to recall what you did, and it happened to be they used to get bonuses once a month that you had to calculate over 4 weeks' tax, etc. But that was an excitement there, you know. It was only satchels, no money.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was. It was really funny. It wasn't, and the money used to be delivered, and back in those days we used to put money into packets.
Nice.
You know, you had to count the money.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if it was that job, but the next job certainly was back. So then I got
quick question. So how come your response was like, wow, this is exciting? Because isn't that like a bit unusual? Because others, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I have to recall and I have to redo what I've just done.
Well, you did have the basic paperwork there. You had to copy, so to speak. You had to relate or calculate the blah, blah. So you would have had the basic.
Isn't that a nuisance for you?
Well, it is, but it only happened once. Only got stolen once. Well, I'm a figures person. I get my pleasure. I play Sudoku all the time now, so I like my counting to 9 and calculating. If you don't like figures, like my sister's not a figure person, she's an artist, painter.
Yeah, but I wouldn't like to redo my work.
Well, it was only once. It was a necessity.
Yeah, but it made you feel rather important, right? It's like,
Well, I couldn't do without me, and they had to be done there and then, so for me it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it sounds good. And then tell me about your next job that you took.
The next job, I haven't had, this is over 50 years of work.
Yeah, I know.
The next job, your memory. Well, no, I stayed a long time. The next job I took on, they were on computer. So I learned, this is back in 1973 or something like that. We had computers, and after a few years of that, we were taken over by another company, and we went back to a Kalamazoo system, which is handwritten paperwork again. And then those pays were put onto a comptometer where you use all your hands. I don't know how to use that. So if that girl was away, you would do things in triplicate or duplicate. You would do your calculation, write all your figures on a piece of fine columns, and then underneath would be a duplicate piece of paper with a ink, in between, and that would be the pay slip. So again, that was we went back to that after having been on the computer, so that was a backward step.
Yeah.
Again, it was interesting, so that's where I first learned computing. Yeah. But the downfall of working with computers is that everybody else used to fix it. I'm important, pays have got to be done by a certain time. If the computer breaks down, it's got to be fixed then. Yeah. So the IT people would come fix up your computer. Yeah. But so I never ever learned how to fix it myself because it was always done by somebody. It was lucky there, but I'm pretty bad at it now because it was always done for me.
Yeah. Oh.
But computers...
So you would have liked to learn?
I'm not at all mechanical.
Yeah.
So probably not.
Yeah.
But it's a necessary evil now. I would have liked to have been a typist too because you learned how to type quickly, whereas now...
Yeah, that would have been save you so much time.
Yes. So a lot of us at my era that didn't learn to type were a bit of a little bit faster, but
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
But yeah.
And so that was pretty much most of your career working in
Yes, it sounds pretty bad. But I did have a few secondary jobs. I think I worked at the TAB for a Saturday afternoon for instance, and then one of the ladies there, one of my daughter's friends' mothers, she works at TAB, she asked me if I was interested, so I did a Saturday afternoon TAB,
Nice.
and that was all in the head, you know, you added everything up and you had to balance the end of the day.
Wow.
So I only worked...
Proud of you.
Well, it was simple arithmetic. It's not
Okay.
heavy maths or anything. And then something cropped up and I finished up working for a golf club waitressing for functions like weddings and evening functions. That was enjoyable too. Like my daughter was a swimmer, so there was usually a function on somewhere for swimming, or it was only once a week or something like that. So I enjoyed that side because you could talk to people and you'd serve them food, and it was always, I didn't have to do the washing up, there was someone to wash up for you.
Perfect.
But,
I don't like dishes either.
No, I didn't have to cook either, we just had to serve it and talk to people and, you know, so it was interesting.
That's quite cool. Yeah, and then I want to talk a little bit more about like your primary job in pay. So like, you know, day in, day out, it gets very, very repetitive, and I guess
It probably is, but because it's in demand and you had a certain time to do it, you didn't really have time to think, and you talk to people. Like I've had a few people who actually, you know, you did things like insurance, workers' work cover, taxes, payroll tax, group taxes. You had to, so the financial side of payroll. A new person starts, sometimes you'd have to speak with them, get their paperwork, so you'd meet the new person.
Yeah.
You'd orient them to the company, take them around sometimes, you know, like a bit of HR kind of work.
Yeah, and I guess like day in, day out, were you like excited for work? Were you like, oh yes, another Monday? Or like, what was your kind of general attitude? Because I think like, not sure, but back in the old days, you know, a job was just a job. But nowadays, a lot of young people, you know, they want to be like, they want to wake up excited for it. They want to find meaning, and they expect a lot from work.
Do.
So I'm kind of keen to know your stance and your feelings back in the day.
Unfortunately, money is a necessary evil.
I love it.
You have to work if you want. So we were not over wealthy. We were not wealthy at all. And with my mother being sick, there was no like two incomes coming in. It was my father.
Yeah.
And so we had to work, and if you wanted something, you worked for it. And you saved for it.
Yeah, nice. But did you ever consider like pursuing another career outside of pay, or was it just too stable to?
Well, it was very stable, but
Yeah.
because it was so stable, if you're a mother and you've got a child and you've got to occasionally, oh, that's that door keeps slamming. You know, there are times where you need to do things. When you've been in a company a long time, they sort of look after you as well.
Yeah.
If you need time out, you could have an hour here or a bit of time there to do something special.
Yeah.
You could work back and do it. Like, it's not all, because eventually you're on salary, so you can work 50, 60 hours a week if you have to. Like, I worked through a few floods, I've worked through a few things, and the pay must go. People need their money. So the job must happen, and I'm a responsible person, I feel.
Yeah.
So you just had to do it. Well, I've always worked with people who were the same sort of thinkers.
Yeah.
And we were responsible for our work. It had to be done. There's deadlines in payroll.
Yeah.
There's deadlines in paying your taxes and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And you're on the phone talking to people. And as I say, work cover, you'd talk to, in some jobs you have to actually do the work cover. You'd ask them, you know, what was wrong with them, how they're feeling, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so I think I even did pays at home when I had the measles.
Wow.
They just sent me home, and the other company I had a bit of a cancer scare, and I worked from home before COVID, and I worked from home.
Yeah.
And somebody would pick up the work or drop it off, or I would do it online.
Yeah.
And if you kept changing jobs, they would probably say, sorry, can't help you or can't look after you.
Yeah.
So I had stability in that way, which was most important. Because at that time, I think my husband, there was quite a few strikes happening. People were striking for extra pays and whatnot. So if you've got a bit of debt and you've got to pay a house, etc., a good stable income is good for the nervous system.
Yeah. Helps you sleep better at night.
That's right.
Sounds good. And then I'm also keen to touch on Toastmasters.
Oh, Toastmasters.
When did that come in the timeline, and how did you first hear about it?
First of all, I used to play sport, etc., and then Toastmasters. Well, Toastmasters has been, we've just celebrated 50 years in Queensland. It's called District 69.
Mm.
And it's just now celebrating its 50th year since it became a district. Before that, it might have been part of a bigger community, but now we're Queensland, Northern New South Wales. Now we've got Papua, Northern Territory and Fiji. That's District 69.
Yeah.
So I joined when it was just growing. I have a friend who's been in it for 50 years, and he said there were X number of clubs at the time. Well, now we've got 10 times as many clubs.
Yeah.
So it's grown. When I first... not that I had I did have a fear. I took on the job of being the sergeant, which is the opener of the club. You know, you'd have to set up the equipment, if you had a microphone, or give out the paperwork, or greet people. And then you had to say things like, I call this meeting to order and hand control too. Well, for about 3 months I used to, when I drove twice a month to the club, I would practice saying, hi now, you know, and hand control to the president. And was I nervous? I don't know. I must have felt inadequate.
Yeah.
Because everybody was like, they were in suits, they were coming from work. We're in a club that started at 6:30, so people could come from work and eat. Yeah. And they were doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs again, you know.
Yeah.
And here am I feeling quite inadequate.
Yeah. But how did you first come across Toastmasters?
Well, I think it was advertised somewhere.
Oh, okay.
In those days we had local newspapers, which have just ceased a few years now.
Yeah.
And that was always good. So I think it was probably the local newspaper.
Oh, okay. And then that was pretty brave of you to just...
Well, I went along, we met at the hotel, local hotel, and then you're hooked. It's very interesting. It was a club of 40, probably maybe 30 members at the time, all walks of life, all talking about different things, much applause, and which I felt was... What was all this applauding all the time?
Yeah.
But I could see the growth in people. I could see it was good for the brain power.
Yeah. That's cool. And was like public speaking and like improving the way you express yourself something that you always wanted to kind of work
No,
on?
I don't think so. I felt it was, I don't even know, but sometimes you go to a club or you go somewhere and they say, are there any questions? Yeah. Well, I always say, I'd put my hand up like so. Yeah. Please don't pick me, I'll pass. I'll just go red and shiver. Don't pick me, but I want to ask this question. So that's what I always say why I joined Toastmasters. I wanted to have the guts to get up and put my hand up and ask the question so that people could hear me and ask it so that they could understand what I was saying. Yeah,
that's cool. And to dig a little bit into that. So was it like, you know, afraid of sounding stupid by asking a stupid question, or was it, what was the feeling?
Now even, apparently, I still get in trouble for... Some years ago I read this book about speed reading I did, and also how to abbreviate your words and get your point across in X number of words. So I've always remembered that. So when I ask a question, I ask a few words. Yeah. And they don't know where I'm coming from. And they say, what are you talking about? Well, I'd forgotten that they don't know the background. Yeah. And I say, what about this? And they say, so someone will have to explain. So would you believe it's still happening? Because, again, I had someone here at my house one day and he told me that I prattle, which means I talk too much about nothing, about whatever. So what is it? Do you have to talk briefly and get your message across, or do you expand your word usage and just talk too much?
Damn, that's pretty hard to find the middle ground.
It is. So after 37 years, I'm still learning, but you'd be proud of me. I can now put my hand up and ask that question and stay there and not blush and demand an answer. I'll sit down, put my head in a paper bag afterwards. Yeah. But at least I do ask these days because I know a little bit more about what I'm asking and I'm demanding an answer. How's that?
Very nice.
It's taken a few years, but I've done it.
Yeah, and how does one sort of develop this? Because I imagine that so many people that are watching this can also relate. And how did you overcome that fear? Because it's very kind of psychological, actually.
It is psychological, but I've got old, and I did a volunteer. Like now I'm retired, I can do whatever I can put my hands on, and I worked for Smith Family for a while. And there's all these various children from various backgrounds and countries, and at their breakup they sang this song, and it is "This Is Me," and there was all these different coloured and dress kind of children on stage, and they sang the song "This Is Me." And at my age I realised, this is only a few years ago, this is me, and I'm afraid this is me. So I'm accepting.
Yeah.
And sometimes, would you believe, sometimes I create a change in the focus of that meeting by bringing up this topic, which a few others thought of it but wouldn't put their hand up. And because I have, it's brought up a whole new level of interest and discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm quite pleased with myself at that moment, because I wouldn't be happy with it just being passed over, because that means we're delegates on behalf of our clubs, or we're office bearers representing our clubs, but we're not doing that representation properly.
Yeah.
So that, I'm pleased with that. But with Toastmasters, even now, I ask people, why do you want to join? Because some of them come in, they've got beautiful voice, they speak clearly and everything. Like just last week, one young lady, she said, she's a pharmacist, and she said, I don't interact with the customers as I would like to. And also I get upset with some of their problems. You know, they come to the pharmacy because they're ill. But she said she can't small talk, which is a bit different from getting up on stage and bellowing and talking and acting even. This is just talking with, and I get into trouble for talking with lots of people.
Ooh, okay. And why is that?
Well, I think I shouldn't talk to strangers.
Have you been scammed a lot then?
Oh no, this is face to face. No, not online or anything.
Yeah.
But
what's wrong? Like, someone would be like, oh wow, you know, I love it. Tania has the guts to talk to randoms. Like, ooh.
Well, it doesn't, like, behave. You're talking to people sitting next to you. Like last night, we sat in the rain watching a concert, and then before we know where we are, we're just about great friends with these people. It was wonderful, because it was starting to rain, and I said, "Oh, make a little side comment." And then we found out that they've just been to Darwin, and I would like to go to Darwin for a quick holiday.
That's
and
wonderful.
One was a teacher, and one was, it was just lovely.
Yeah, that's amazing. You do you, Tania. I don't see why it's a bad thing.
Well, it's good. It's great.
Yeah, but I guess it's not common, and a lot of people, they sort of keep to themselves. But yeah, everyone starts as strangers, so I want to say I'm kind of like that as well, but like I definitely always admire people that can do that as well. So
I've just joined Rosie's, which is another voluntary organisation, and what they tell us is the main thing our clients, is that they want to talk to somebody as well. Outside of where they live or what they do. And so we serve them coffee and a bit of cake or biscuit or something. But the main thing they do is want to talk with us. Wow, I'm in.
Have
a great time.
You could talk for hours, no problem.
Oh, not about me. It's about them, and it's about things.
But your interest in people, that's pretty incredible.
It's very good.
I think we all have some kind of stereotypes in our minds about, like, you know, people who are like figures orientated, or who, you know, pay. And then, but you know, you're very much a people person, I found.
Well, it's hard to describe yourself, but I
try your best.
I think so. I feel so. I mean, there are times when you feel like you haven't combed your hair and you look a bit bedraggled and you don't want to be seen. But you know, I've walked down the road past this gentleman who was, he played the saxophone in Brisbane, and I happened to say to him, "I'm going to a bit of a story as well, but I said to him, I'm going to go to the convention in Atlanta. Do you want to come with me? And he said, yes. I thought, oh my goodness, what will I do? My sister would really...
kill me if you
Yeah,
found
she
out.
would. So next minute we're going, and I learned how to cope with a blind person, as in how to help him. You don't lead them, they hang on to your arm. He showed me how to, you put their hand on the door, then they know where they are. Yeah. Otherwise, if you say, move in, well, they can't see. How can they move in? He told me how to cope with them. And so it was really good. And he wanted to do the tipping in America because I don't know how much to tip in America. Yeah. He said, let me do that. And I thought, goodness. But with that, he was a saxophonist. He played the saxophone in New Orleans. You can't get better than that. He busked with the locals in New Orleans, which is a jazz capital of the world. Wow. I mean, who's done that? Oh, I have.
Yeah. Wow. Terrific. And how old were you when you asked that random...
Oh, I was a senior.
You were a singer?
Senior. I was an older person. Yeah. I mean, I know who I am and he knows what he is. And we went there and the first thing we did was go to the hospital because he was disoriented. He was with me, who we only met a few times. No, but we're in America, different language. He can't... Yeah. Doesn't know, different sound. Is with a strange person like me, and he's in America. I mean, for goodness sake. So we went there to get some soothing kind of medication.
Wow, at that point in time, were you like, oh my gosh, I regret this already?
Oh, no, we went to the hospital. I mean, who goes to a hospital in another country? It's an experience, After that, it was a ball. Yeah, we had a ball. And when we met up with the other Toastmasters, they looked after him. Yeah. So I had a bit of space there, but it was magic. But Toastmasters for me, in my later years I could travel, it's opened up quite a few alleys for me. My background is, my family came from near Lake Baikal in north above China, and somebody was giving a speech. And when I spoke with him, he said he came from that area. Next minute, 2 months later, I'm in his mother's and father's place. They took me out to see when my father was born. 300 k's away. I mean, I only met him one day at a Toastmaster meeting.
Yeah, and how, is it because you guys have such a strong bond, being in Toastmasters, there's this trust that's built in, or I don't know. How does one just...
There might be a similar type of people, maybe.
Yeah.
I also do homestays from Griffith, so that opened up some travel and meeting new people as well. So just for a month, I'd have students from Griffith Uni, and they'd stay with you, and it gave me an opportunity to take them places where I've probably been before, but take them to the beach and they go out and swim in the surf, and then you've got to try and get somebody to bring them back. They swim in their clothes, and then you've got to try and take them to lunch with towels wrapped around them, and take the
but you love it.
Yeah, we've had a ball, and they come back. Yeah. And I was single after a while, and one of my friends was a Rotarian. So they also used to host people, and we've been to visit those host people. Yeah. We've hosted them and they host us, and
that's pretty fun.
Or we catch up with them in Switzerland or something like that, so it's opened up. Well, and having these homestays, when I went to where my parents were, I stopped at Vladivostok. I mean, how many people go to visit Vladivostok for it? I did, and did all these strange things that, it was just exciting adventure.
Yeah, that's a good attitude to life.
So Toastmasters, when I have travelled by myself, what do you do at night? I went to China, I left my camera in the taxi. I was with a girl I'd picked up at the shop through the day. She came with me, and she contacted the taxi. She got my camera back. It was delivered to me the next day.
Very nice.
But the first day, I met a young man in the Chinese club. Yeah. And he said he'd show me around. He picked me up the next day, all right. I was on the back of a push bike, side saddling around Shanghai.
Oh. Very romantic.
Romantic. Oh my gosh, I was side saddled behind him. He was pedaling a push bike.
Wow, how old were you?
No, I was probably a bit brave. I was probably old enough to be his very, very big sister or mother.
Wow.
But I'm on the back of his push bike.
Wow, so you were like 30 at the time? 40?
Oh, no, older than that. Probably more like 55 or something.
Yeah. How do you have the guts and the bravery? Because I know.
Well, I didn't think of it. I just thought we're all people. We're all nice people in the world. Trust too much.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Has it backfired on you, like being so trusting?
Not yet, but not yet. I'm hoping it. No, I keep trusting people. I'll probably only meet the nice people.
Aww. Yeah. Wow. Do you have any sort of like, is this sort of like a calculation in your mind? Like you're saying, for example, you brought this blind saxophone player, was it? Mm-hmm. And then to Atlanta. And then like, did you sort of like, oh, you know, like how will this, like when you go off with strangers, how do you sort of assess the risk if you do?
Well, I'm older. I'm not like a young, beautiful, slim, trim person. You know, I'm an older person. Now, my daughter has a little dog.
Cute.
And her girlfriend, not a girlfriend, she met a young lady who bought the brother of that little dog. Nice. So they became friends, the two girls became friends. That girl was having a 40th birthday, this is just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then my Russian friend, my last Russian friend, died. Oh. She was a Toastmaster as well. Yeah. She passed away. And this girl came to her funeral and she said to me, she told my daughter, I need a holiday in Africa.
Yeah.
So everybody said to me, you're mad, because I was going by, well, I went by myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they picked me up at the plane, you know, and I stayed with these strangers that I'd only met a little bit. Well, what can go wrong? I stayed at her mother and father's house for 2 weeks, and then we went on a safari tour for 3 days, and then after that I went to St Jude's School.
Yeah.
Well, you can't come back from Africa after 2 weeks, you've got to stay a bit longer.
Yeah.
So there was I in Tanzania and Nairobi. Look, it was the best. And then there was a Bronco, went to the same school that I went to. Yeah. And he's giving out T-shirts to all the kids and I'm playing football with the Bronco. This is like 3 years ago. Oh, you can't beat that, can you? And his wife was there too, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just fate. It just, right place, right time.
Yeah.
Something happened and here am I doing that. Can't believe it. But it's good.
Yeah.
Keeps me, you know, it's, sometimes I wonder, did I really do that?
Yeah, was it a dream?
Yeah, it was a dream.
Yeah. That's crazy. So I want to know more about your youth. Were you like that? Like, could you like easily just get along with strangers in your 20s and 30s?
I think we were usually pretty busy. Like there's always study, there's work, there's study. We're in marching girls and we're in netball eventually. And I played netball as an adult later as well. And, you know, they do these little drives. The netball, I live at Sunnybank, so near Sunnybank, we've got a big, they were opposition to us. Yeah. And so the lady who started that, I used to play against her. I used to beat them too.
Very good.
Yeah, it was, yes. So that was there. And then another lady I work with, she was the Queensland netball president at the time. Yeah. And she started another group at, I think I heard today they're starting something at Salisbury. I think they're starting there. I heard it today on that actually paddock that netball courts were. And she, you know, we used to make Lamington, so we had a Lamington drive or things like that. So doing volunteer work, I didn't have so much time when I was younger. Yeah. But later on, and my daughter was a flight attendant, so I used to visit her she was an Ansett girl. Yeah. And based in Melbourne, so I used to go to Melbourne and when she was a bit older, and so there was a little bit of travel there. So it was all pretty exciting times.
Yeah, that's
You've got to keep active. Yeah. You've got to have something to look forward to, because like at the moment it's with COVID, it's a bit. You've got to be careful you don't get depressed. It's very easy mentally to sort of 100%. Lose the plot. Yeah. So through refugee tutoring, I started for a little while. I met a beautiful Afghani family from Mount Gravatt. Yeah. And they still invite me to their weddings and birthdays. And I went to one a couple of months ago when we were COVID allowed. And, you know, it's a different culture. All the women are together. There's probably 40 women and all these children. And I had to get up and do the dance like they do. And they're beautiful dancers, you know, so you've got to not be shy. You've got to join in. I was the only non-Afghani there. And, you know, And then I have an African lady who visited me last week that I met through refugee tutoring months ago, and we went shopping together, and so, you know, even they go, if you don't see them for a while, you're still in touch.
Yeah.
And so it's really very magic. Keeps me going.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm just shocked by your bravery. I'm wondering, like, is it something to do with, like, being a bit older and feeling like you don't have much to lose? Like, if you were like in your 20s and 30s, could you have done, I guess, similar stuff? You know?
Well, I didn't have the chance.
Yeah,
well,
you didn't.
I wouldn't, because you're too busy being a parent or a grown-up first and then a parent, and you're busy. And you've got other things on your mind, haven't you? You've either got a husband, or you've got or you've got duties, or... No, I think you're right. No, I didn't even consider that younger.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity didn't come, but I wasn't looking for it either. Not that I'm particularly looking for it now, but I'm glad they've come along.
Yeah.
And I think there might be something in being a bit older, supposedly wiser.
Yeah.
But just meeting up with people, opportunities arise, and you take the chance. That's not good, is it?
That's amazing.
Well, when you think about it, I suppose it is, but I don't think of it like that. I just think it's part of life, and I assume that you would be doing it and other people do the same things. You know, because some of these things that have happened are a little bit unusual. Like I worked for the Olympic Games. Well, that was terrific. I took holidays. I always dreamt I would work for the Olympic Games. I was a volunteer. So I took 3 weeks off from my payroll job, and I went down to Sydney and I worked at the Olympic Games. Well, I'm on the front cover of a volunteer book. I mean...
I love it.
Well, with the other people, but I'm on the little face on the front cover. I mean, wow. I mean, that's pretty magic, because it's something I can look at and, you know... And as soon as we got the Olympic Games, I rang up my friends in Sydney and I said, hey, can I put a tent up in your yard?
Yeah.
Come on down. Well, they were volunteer crazy. Not volunteer, they were Olympic Games crazy. Yeah. So I went to, I bought tickets and, I went down there, I got my uniform, I got my tickets, and I left them on the train. And then I went to the shop to get something, because it was a black bag and it was a black seat on the back.
Oh, no.
So what'll I do? I went to the railway station, the woman there, she looked for it. Where did you come from? I don't know, up the road. I'm in Sydney. What train? What time? Oh, about half an hour ago. There are millions of trains going through. She found it for me. Somebody handed in which included $1,000 worth of tickets, or maybe 2,000 tickets, and she found it for me. So the next day, I...
Continue your journey.
I did, but I rang up the radio station. I wanted to tell them about this wonderful lady at the railway station who looked for my tickets, and the person who handed them in, she was good too. And when I came back, somebody in Brisbane had heard my radio interview. I got John Laws. I couldn't get, the other person couldn't fit me in. Yeah. So, again, someone told me they heard it. Well, that's pretty magic. Someone heard my interview to say that I've lost my handbag and somebody has handed it in and I've got it back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Wow.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty magic.
It is, yeah.
And then I worked for the 82 Commonwealth Games in Brisbane. I applied because I like the sports and I volunteered for that.
Yeah.
And then at the time, somebody asked about who's giving out medals. Yeah. And so I got my daughter a job. She gave the medals at depends on height and everything at that stage. So she didn't get swimming, she was a swimmer, but she got weightlifting and wrestling.
Cool. That's cool.
Mm. Oh, I'm rattling on here, but
no, it's fine.
She had a little accident and she was a water polo player and she had her arm in a sling, and I drove her to the practice for the medals. And that day, this is one of my stories, that day they didn't have like the Duke or probably wouldn't have been the Queen, it probably was the Duke, but I say it was the Queen, to present the medals. They had all these people working but didn't have the actual Queen giving out the medals. This is in practice. Yeah. But I was there. Yeah. So I played...
The Queen.
The Queen! So that was my story. I used that story because that's what really happened. I had to walk out and sort of pretend so that the girls could practice giving out the medals. So, you know, that was another little magic story. I mean,
Yeah, it is. And I'm also kind of curious to know when this magic started. Was it like what
When the
age
magic
roughly
started.
did you kind of hit? And then, you know, you suddenly became like, you were able to see the opportunity and able to see that kind of adventure and not be so, I guess, scared.
well, see, that's 40 years ago. That was 82 games. Oh, just little things. I think being... I think... I don't know. Things just happen and you just accept it. You just think everybody, like it'll happen to you when you get older, or when you've got the time for that sort of thing, because at the moment you're busy with you're preoccupied. But
Yeah.
later on, things might just happen.
Yeah, that's so funny because I always imagined that the older I get, the more conservative I would become. And I found that like when I see other people, like, I don't know, like you're like such a fun senior. I haven't been exposed to that before. And I see other people, they're like, nah, I don't want to do it. Like, you want to try a new hobby? Nah, I don't want to do it. I'm like, do you want me to like, you know, like spice your life up? But they just do the same thing. I don't know, read a newspaper, go for a walk. But I see Tania here and then like my mind is blowing.
Well, I hate to say this, but if you've got a good partner in life that you can relate to, either together or do separately, but you still stay united, you know, together.
Yeah.
If you've got a good relationship or... See, a lot of times I've been single for a long time.
Yeah.
So what do you do with it? Well,
Enjoying fun.
having said that, not really. A friend I had for a very long time was with Rotary, and he used to do a lot of travel in Australia.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that because I have to earn a living to support the household. But that was sort of adventurous too, because we did go overseas and meet up with, you know, a few different things. But so I wasn't really tied up. I've been sort of single, but I've had opposite sex friends, and we'd go out and do things. But I was still my own entity. But had I been free at that time with that gentleman, I probably could have travelled with him. But I had to work because I had to pay my mortgage, and we lived in our own places and that. So he could do that because he was older and he had the means. And you know, you've got to look after yourself because you're not a kept person. You look after yourself.
Yeah.
But it has opened up. And Toastmasters, when I had travelled a bit, what do I do at night? I go to a Toastmaster club and you meet more people. And they say, well, meet you tomorrow and show you around, or you go and have supper with them that night. So it's another... So you don't just stop in your hotel room at night when you do travel by yourself.
Yeah.
So, but I think... well, to date, I haven't really met bad people. So there are a lot of good people in the world.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you consider yourself a lucky person in life?
Not necessarily, but now that I'm seeing people who are homeless and I'm seeing people who've got injury and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If you can live and survive with your ailments that you have, because you'll have something wrong with you somewhere along the line, you'll get, you know, it was an experience. Like I've had my cancer, I've had breast cancer, I've had, lost my hair. I got to live with this kind of little funny, frizzy little stuff.
Cool.
But I used to have big hair. Well, now I've got to adapt. So now I think, how did people who had wishy-washy hair when they were younger, how did they cope with it all their life?
Yeah.
I've got to do it now, but I had good, strong hair.
Yeah.
So for me, it's sort of like depressing.
Yeah.
But look outside of it. Look outside, don't...
Yeah,
so
don't stay in your mind, kind of.
So you've got to all the time lift yourself. And when you meet people that say they've got this little... I say, come to Toastmasters. You might find yourself. You might realise that everybody... Because people talk about their stories.
Yeah.
And some are good, some are bad. Last week we had a lady about shoes. She gets sore feet. She's an older lady. She hasn't retired. And she talked about shoes and feet. How can you talk about that?
Yeah.
By the time we'd finished, she was a scientist actually, but now she's got her own little different kind of business. And she talked about shoes. And she sat in Queen Street and she watched people with their feet. And she said, if you go, and she not measured them, but she counted and did all sorts of things. And she said, if you go to a shoe shop, an op shop, you'll see all these beautiful, hardly worn shoes because they're very uncomfortable to wear, but you'll wear them for a wedding or you wear them for a ball, and you take them home and never to wear them again because they're uncomfortable. So she sort of put the story on that. So I'm wearing comfortable joggers, and this is me.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Anyway, there's lots of stories in life, and you've probably got a lot. You just don't count them as stories at this moment. But later on, you think, oh.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool. And I guess maybe, do you have any, regrets in life? Do you have any advice for young people watching this, or anything you'd go back in time and tell yourself?
Oh, of course, you've got regrets, and you've got a lot of regrets. Well, I won't get too personal here, but don't rush into marriage. Know what I read somewhere that, I'll be held down for this, that you've got different phases in your life. You know, the young person, look at life ahead of you. Then there's the middle life where, you know, you're looking after children, you're doing this and that, and you're not really relating to your partner because you might have boys and girls, football, swimming, gymnastics, work, running them to school. You haven't got time for each other, and you drift apart, which is very sad.
Yeah.
Or then you find you've got other interests. Yeah. So I think it's very hard to find. I think people who've survived a good marriage and stayed happy and done what they wanted in life, not be suppressed by the other person's whims or likes, or you know, some people like to read, and you want to go and play sport. You know, balance it. Terrific. So there's a lot of happy people who are married a long time and still happy, and I'm jealous. Yeah. I'm happy for them. Yeah. But if you can find that, I think that's a real plus.
Aww.
But otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah. But I guess it's never too late, right, Tania, with your adventurous spirit?
Well, I think love is the most important thing in life, to be loved and loved. Yeah. But I'm very into honest thing. And what is love? It's giving and getting. Yeah. It's not just all giving. You've got to receive, and the other person's got to feel the same way. Yeah. But some people like it that way, and you might like it for a while, but I think eventually you get a little bit bitter because you're doing all the housework and blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, back in the day, men used to do hard work as well. Yeah. Labour work, or, you know, cutting wood, or that was a long time ago. But now, what does that mean? You go take your car to the garage. They do all the fixing and all that before the men would actually play with their cars and do all those sorts of things. Yeah. I think you can find a hobby together. I think that's a real plus. That's good. And enjoy each other, I think. Yeah. But you've got to probably wait for the right person, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting.
It's it's out of your hands, but you can enjoy a lot of other things in life and enjoy people's company. Oh.
Yeah. That's cool. And so, Tania, the big, deep question. In your opinion, what do you think the meaning of life is?
What is the meaning of life? Sometimes you have to wonder.
Yeah.
We didn't ask to be born.
100% true.
So, but we're here. I think you've got to make the most of it. Yeah. You've got to really thrive, and you see people with afflictions, and they're brilliant. They do things. They can't help they've got that, but they cope with it. And I really grateful for what I have. I mean, we all have our problems, but those people that cope with it, I just think they're marvellous. So, meaning of life, you've been given life, make the most of it.
Aw, that's beautiful.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you go under.
Yeah.
You have to really, and try not to get depressed because you're in command. Yeah. So if you're not happy, do something about it. Read a happy book. I mean, there's pictures on TV that, let's get out of this. Go for a walk.
Yeah, try to change your environment to change your state of mind sometimes.
If you like a puppy dog, if you not afford, but dogs and animals tie you down a lot.
Yeah.
Because I don't have one now because I'd be terrified to go out because he'd look at me with those sad eyes.
Yeah.
Are you going to leave me here again?
Yeah.
But sometimes you can walk other people's dogs.
Yeah.
And you don't always have to be paid. I met a lady in the park 3 days ago. Yeah. There were 2 people, a man and a woman.
Yeah.
They had 10 dogs each. They were walking. They're probably getting paid for it, but they're walking dogs from units or from people at work. Yeah. And they were loving it. The dogs were in heaven. They're walking. Yeah. They've got friends. Do that. Do something like that.
Yeah.
Go and read to an older lady or an older person. Take a blind man to America. I mean, you know, that was magic for him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Damn,
and it was magic for me too.
Yeah, yeah. And what an experience.
Well,
now you have a cool story to tell.
Well, I have. It was magic.
Yeah, that's cool. But I really like what you're saying about sort of being a little bit creative with it, thinking outside the box. Like, if you can't get a dog, then why can't you walk someone else's? And why can't you do something nice for someone else? So, yeah.
Even like a garden or something, you know, like I'm no gardener, but I'm going to take up volunteer gardening or go to a council thing to learn how to garden.
Yeah.
Because I did a speech a few weeks ago. I called it Fussy Feeders. Now, we have to do like research speeches so that if you know about what you're talking about, you can get up and talk easily.
Yeah. But
if you've got to research something, you've got to learn it. You've either got to learn what you're doing or you've got to read notes.
Yeah.
Well, I had to read some notes. But, you know, I'm this age, and it's all common sense, mind you.
Yeah.
And fussy feeders are the plants. They're very fussy. The orchid wants this, that wants that wants that. More, all these different products. So you've got bottles for everybody. Make sure you label them because you take the label off, you don't know what's inside there. They're blue things or dots. And then, would you believe, once that beautiful new leaf comes out, there's these other fussy feeders. Insects come along, aphids. All those horrible big words.
Yeah.
And you've got, you know, some leaves go brown, some have got dots on the back.
Yeah.
They like to eat those fresh leaves that are just full of protein and vitamin.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's all common sense. Yeah. Well, I learnt that in my speech a few weeks ago. I call it fussy feeders. Yeah. So it's the plants are fussy and these insects are fussy.
Yeah.
So then you've got to destroy, sounds awful, doesn't it? Give them the food that they might like to eat, but they'll run away from you because they're, you know, you send them to heaven, but you know, get rid of and the plants flourish, you know. Yeah. So that was just from that little speech I did for my 5 to 7 minutes for Toastmasters.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, and that's very creative as well. Fussy feeders.
Yeah,
I'll think of that.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Well, they say if you can give a speech, that people will go back. Well, like that lady talked about those shoes. Well, now we're talking that. Another fellow last week, he talked about meditation. Yeah. Well, who's got time to meditate? Yeah. He said start with 2 minutes. For 2 minutes, I don't know what you do, but think of nothing. And just sort of, well, gradually you're going to talk about, I've got to go and do the washing up or hang up my washing or do something. Yeah. But gradually, and apparently that invigorates your mind, and that's what he told us anyway. You know, so you learn all these things from going to Toastmasters and listening to these little 5 to 7 minute speeches. Just amazing what people come out with. Everybody's different every time.
Yeah, that's cool. So join Toastmasters if you're listening to this. Yeah. Yeah, so I also want to know, fun question. So Tania, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you change about your life? And yeah.
Well, at my age, you've got to be comfortable in the way of self-preserved, as in you don't want people to come and do things for you, like your yard or anything like that. So do something that make it all comfortable in that way. Yeah. Oh, I'd probably do more volunteer work. Oh, well, I don't want millions. It'd be nice to have, you know, my daughter always says, why don't you get this or why don't you get that? Well, I don't really need it. I'm comfortable with what I've got. I've just bought these funny socks that'll keep my feet warm. You don't need heaters and blankets and, you know, like air conditioning. Yeah. What would I do with it? I think you'd have to invest it in, say you bought so that it would help others forever after. Yeah. I mean, if you spend it all in one hit, it's wasted and breaks and breaks down. But if you can make it grow and continue, I think educating other people to look after themselves would be better than just providing them with something.
Yeah, teach them how to fish, not just give them...
Correct, all those sorts of things. So then they can find their own self-worth.
Yeah.
And it would give me a self-worth, but, well, I don't think it's ever going to happen, so I don't think I have that worry.
Nice. Rich people have rich people problems, and then middle class have middle class problems, and poor have poor problems. So.
Well, we all have problems. We're probably never happy with what our lot, but I think it's nice to have family and friends, and some people, I've been to some people, and when they had wealth and parties and food and everything, they had lots of people there.
Yeah.
But once they couldn't provide that because they weren't well, not they didn't have the money, they didn't have these parties.
They just left.
Yeah, you don't have all those people, so...
Yeah, it's interesting to see what remains when you really don't have much. Yeah.
It's nice to be able to ring up people and, I remember that, we met 5 years ago, and it's, I received something from Vladivostok just a month ago, and Russia had just gone into war, started all that nonsense. And here I got a parcel from a girl there. She said it was Happy Valentine's Day, and she sent it on the 14th of February, and I got it on the 14th of April. It was a calendar.
Oh, okay.
And it was a calendar of depicting Vladivostok, and she just asked me how I was and blah, blah. And I haven't seen her for about, probably 5 years now.
Wow.
Just out the blue.
Yeah.
So it was...
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and so Tania, what is your ideal day in the life?
Ideal?
Day in the life. So what time do you wake up? What do you do?
Okay, a day in my life. I belong to...
What about like a day in your life and then the ideal day in your life? So we can
it would be quite ideal. At the moment it's winter and it's very dark. It's 6 o'clock. And I do Tai Chi at 6:30 now.
Oh, very good.
Yes. But I'm a bit lazy. I fell over a few weeks ago. I tripped, the grass was wet, or I don't know what happened, but I tripped and I pulled a little muscle. So that sort of maimed me a bit. At the moment it's quite dark, and going to Toastmasters at night, we usually have a post-mortem afterwards, so we sit and talk about it, either at the venue or I go with somebody and they drop me off and they go to bed late. It's very hard getting up at 6 in the dark. I turn on the radio at 6 o'clock, I listen to the 6 o'clock news, then it's a mad panic to get there, and that's why I tripped. I was running and slipped on the grass. And we do Tai Chi, and I believe in keeping your body fit as well as your mind.
Yeah.
And you do get lazy, but you've got to do it. Yeah. Because once that deteriorates and goes, you can't do all these adventures.
Yeah.
So in my life, I would like to be fitter. I like my food, but I listen to things on the radio and they tell you what you should be eating and what you shouldn't. But I met an Indian doctor, Mr. Singh, with his turban, and he told me not to eat this with that, which I've been doing all my life. Yeah. And that free consultation certainly made me feel better. So I listened to him, and then an hour later I go and feed up what I do what he has told me. And it was just somebody I met there, just by saying good, hello.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy that. Then you feel fit. And it's just complimentary to you, to oneself, when people say, oh, you look supple or something. I thought, wow, I do? And that's from Tai Chi. Oh, but that's not aerobic. It's good for keeping everything going.
Yeah.
So I think my idea is not to sit around and be over lazy, because you get unfit by not keeping fit, but not overdoing it.
The key to life is balance.
Balance, good girl.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're nearly at the end of the podcast. The final question is, how was your podcast experience? Like, what did you expect, and how was it, and was it as nerve-wracking? I know you were very, skeptical. What's it going to be used for? I don't have anything interesting, but turns out...
Well, you probably, if you get one ticket, it'll probably be mine. But whatever your purpose is for doing it, everything has a purpose. And when we do our speeches in Toastmaster, you've got to define a purpose.
Yeah.
So if you haven't got that message across, it's really just a prattle like that man told me.
Yeah.
But I have done another one here in my yard. A lady came and asked me if she wanted to do something similar, just short ones. And I turned the corner on her. I thought it was just a practice run, and I was not very presentable. But we talked about her being a spoilt rich person. Well, then I turned the corner and I said, all right, I'm going to be the mother spending the money and not leaving you anything because I'm going to spend it all. So the story changed, and that changed the climate of the podcast. So it was all about my advising a young person not to be a spendthrift and save a little bit and all that. But then in the end, when I said I was spending my money, and she suddenly thought she wasn't going to get a little bit of a handout later on, she had to control me. So it was quite an interesting podcast, a little adventure again. So, no, yes, well, it would have been lovely if I could give somebody a little bit of interest that there is life outside of just being a plain Jane living in suburbia and living just a monotone life. There are a lot of adventurous people out there. I meet them all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just magic, and they excite me.
Yeah. Makes you excited for life.
Well, you need it. It's too easy to go buckle down.
Yeah.
And we can't afford that, because once you do that, once you've lost the plot, medicated and all that sort of stuff, you've just got to work on yourself. You've got to talk to yourself all the time. Unfortunately, well, I have to too, because it's easy to get depressed, especially in this COVID time. And, you know, getting older, people have got their chores or their ailments or their lifestyle. And when you live on your own, you've got to... There are other people who are likewise and need me, and I need them. Yeah. So while I'm doing a little bit of volunteer work, they're getting benefits out of me, you know. Yeah. I'm the best clicker. I went on this overnight a fun bicycle thing, a Rio ride. Yeah. And they liked the way I clicked. Someone told me they heard, oh, and I have a bell, breast cancer bell. And I'm ringing this bell, and you got to click as they go past 1, 2, 3. There were 782 bike riders that day. Damn. And I was on the bell, and they could hear the bell over the hill and far away, and they knew they were getting close to get a break, time to have a drink. Aww. And they thanked me for it. I mean, what a funny little thing to be thanked for. Yeah. But doesn't that make you feel important? Yeah, and all I do was ring this flaming bell. Everybody's going near me. But I was ringing
At least someone appreciates it.
Well, I did. And they later on, you know, a few people stopped, not many, but a few did. I thought, wow. Yeah. So cool. Sometimes if you feel like you want to thank somebody or smile at somebody or whatever, do it. Yeah. It's just so rewarding. Yeah.
Sounds good. I think this is a good place to end the podcast on. Thank you so much, Tania, for being on the podcast. It was great chatting to you, and life is an adventure.
It sure is. Make it an adventure to the last minute.
Yeah, sounds good. So let's wave goodbye.
Bye. Sorry about that prattling.
Nah, it was great.
Thanks, Karen.
No worries.